So at the end of video 1, Socrates says, "Think only of the truth of my words and give heed to that. Let the speaker speak truly and the judge decide justly." Let's move on. "And first I have to reply to the older charges and to my first accusers, and then I will go on to the later ones, the later charges. For of old I have had many accusers who have accused me falsely to you during many years, and I am more afraid of them than of Anytus and his associates, who are dangerous too in their own way." Anytus is the new set of accusers, but Socrates wants to confront his old accusers. Now let's go back to our assignment prompt, right? The assignment prompt in part A says, part A of your paper is to identify both sets of charges that were brought against Socrates. So we're talking about the old set of charges and the new set of charges. And if you keep watching, we're actually probably going to make it to part of an answer to your essay. So again, if you engage the content in the course, you will hopefully find benefit. Okay, so first he's saying, I got to respond to the old school accusers, then I'm going to respond to the new school accusers. And he says the older ones are more dangerous, but far more dangerous are the others, who began when you were children and took possession of your minds with their falsehoods, telling of one Socrates, a wise man, who speculated about the heaven above and searched into the earth below and made the worse appear the better cause. Okay, so here we have here's the old accusation of Socrates. 1, he speculates about things that are above the heavens, and he speculates about things that are below the earth, and he makes the worst argument appear to be the best argument, or the worst thing appear to be the best or the better. All right, there's half the answer to the charges that were brought against Socrates. "The disseminators of this tale are the accusers whom I dread, for their hearers are apt to fancy that such inquirers do not believe in the existence of the gods, and they are many, and their charges against me are of ancient date. And they were made by them in the days when you were more impressible than you are now, in childhood, or it may have been in youth, and the cause when heard went by default, for there was none to answer. And hardest of all, I do not know and cannot tell the names of my accusers, unless in the chance case of a comic poet." So apparently there was this poet, I forget the name of the poet, this ancient poet, The Clouds, I think. Anyway, he basically made this play, or it was kind of like a playwright, and he wrote a play with this character named Socrates who walks around speculating about all these claims about the gods and above the heavens and below the earth. And it was a comedy, and everybody took it for truth, basically, or Socrates is saying that people believed that what was written in this farcical comedy was actually the truth, and now they're they were very impressionable when they watched this funny movie, like Dumb and Dumber, but now that they're older, that they haven't been able to escape that first impression. Okay, so all who from envy and malice have persuaded you, some of them having first convinced themselves, all this class of men are most difficult to deal with, for I cannot have them up here and cross-examine them, and therefore I must simply fight with shadows in my own defense and argue when there is no one who answers. I will ask you then to assume with me, as I was saying, that my opponents are of two kinds, one recent, the other ancient. And I hope that you will see the propriety of my answering the latter first, for these accusations you heard long before the others and much oftener. So Socrates is saying, I can't bring the people who bring these arguments against me into court here and cross-examine them, because they either no longer exist or they're so old that they're dead. But they had such a strong influence on everyone sitting in this room with me right now that I need to attack their argument first in order to attack those foundations on which later arguments are based. Well, then I must make my defense and endeavor to clear away in a short time a slander which has lasted a long time. May I succeed, if to succeed be for my good and yours, or likely to avail me in my cause. The task is not an easy one. I quite understand the nature of it, and so leaving the event with God, in obedience to the law, I will now make my defense. Okay, so kind of like a long intro, right? But Socrates has outlined his first set of accusers, and now he's ready to make the defense. I will begin at the beginning. I love saying that. Where do we need to begin? We must always begin at the beginning. I think Aristotle says that too at some point. and ask, what is the accusation which has given rise to the slander of me, and in fact has encouraged Meletus to prove this charge against me? Well, what do the slanderers say? They shall be my prosecutors, and I will sum up their words in an affidavit. Socrates is an evildoer and a curious person who searches into things under the earth and in heaven, and he makes the worse appear the better cause, and he teaches the aforesaid doctrines to others. Such is the nature of the accusation. It is just what you have yourselves seen in the comedy of Aristophanes. There is the poet, playwright that I was having trouble remembering, who has introduced a man whom he calls Socrates. So in the play, or in the comedy, in the poet, the long poem, Aristophanes creates a character named Socrates, and this character goes about and says that he walks in air, and he talks a deal of nonsense concerning matters of which I do not pretend to know either much or little, not that I mean to speak disparagingly of anyone who is a student of natural philosophy. I should be very sorry if Meletus could bring so grave a charge against me, but the simple truth is, O Athenians, that I have nothing to do with physical speculations. Very many of those here present are witnesses to the truth of this, and to them I appeal. Speak then, you who have heard me, and tell your neighbors whether any of you have ever known me, hold forth in few words or in many upon such matters. Okay, so ellipsis, so pause. So he's asking everybody, look, they say that I consult things that are above the heavens and below the earth. Well, here's my response. Has anybody here heard me ever talk about these things? And then he stops. You hear their answer. So apparently nobody responded. Nobody said, yeah, well, I heard you the other day down by the 7-Eleven. You were talking about things above the heavens and below the earth. And then, you know, you got something at the Red Box, bad grandpa, or some kind of, anyway. And from what they say of this part of the charge, you will be able to judge of the truth of the rest. So Socrates is saying, okay, they don't say anything here. So from what they say here, they're also going to say nothing to the next part of the charge. All right, I'm going to stop there for part 2. Again, I hope you found this useful. I challenge you to continue to read slowly through the remainder of the Apology. Remember to keep all of these guidelines in mind as you read. So we already have the sets of charges that were brought against Socrates. We have the ancient set, the older set of charges, which is that he consults things above the heavens and below the earth, and that he makes poor arguments look better, and that he teaches those things to others, which is going to be a part of the other charges. Part B says to explain how Socrates responds to these charges and identify the premises he uses to support his claims of innocence. Well, he's already responded here in a certain way, right? He says, no one here has ever heard me speak of these things. So that's one premise that he uses to support his claim that he actually does not consult into things above the heavens and below the earth. And then part C will come later in the Apology, explain what Socrates claims his role is in Athenian society and how he knows that this is his role. And then finally, you'll present your own view of Socrates' guilt or innocence. Again, read slowly, read carefully, and do your best. We don't expect you to do perfect work. We give you hard readings. If you don't understand some things that you read, that's okay. We expect that. Focus on the things that you do understand. Read multiple times, and it will all start to sink in and become part of your thinking process and of your knowledge base. So good luck.